All right, there we go. This one is the first time we actually recording from the beginning. Thanks to Judith. Great work, Judith. Right, so we're dealing with IT networking today. And what we're going to cover is, and I'm assuming you all can see my slides. Yeah?
Yes.
Okay, great. What we're going to cover is what's a computer network. That's number one. We're going to talk about some of the networking connections that exist. We're going to talk about how, well, networking addressing and what it is. Kind of, yeah. We're going to talk about some networking devices, mostly switches and routers. And then we're going to touch on networking certifications and some training around that. As usual, the goal of what I'm trying to do today is not to make you an expert, because to be honest, I could talk to you for like 5 days straight and still not cover everything you need to know. So realistically, I can't cover everything today, but I can give you enough so that you can decide if this is something you want to get into on a permanent basis. As usual, feel free to unmute and ask questions. This is not, I tried to make it not as packed as it was last time, so we don't have as much information, and therefore I got a little more space for questions. And as usual, we will end off with a test, because how do you know you're learning anything if you don't test it? All right, so let's get going. What is a, what is a computer network? Let me take my picture off for a second. What is a computer network? So a computer network is simply a way of connecting multiple devices. If you see the little picture there on the left-hand side, there's a laptop plugged in and a phone, it looks like, and a tablet, and it looks like maybe a little storage device. All of those things are plugged into this one device, and then it's plugged into the rest of the world. That's essentially how it works. And remember, we talked about computers last time, what computing devices are last time. So your phones, your desktops, and your laptops, and your tablets, and your smart TVs, and watches, and whatever else, all of those are computing devices, and all of those can be networked. Now, why do you even bother to network them? Why do you connect them together? Because a lot of the things you want to use, or a lot of the services you use, and a lot of the applications you use, and a lot of the things you want to read and understand are not on your computer. So if, I'm thinking my thing. If you, for example, wanted to search something, Google or whatever, that is not on your computer. Google it just isn't there. It's somewhere else on the internet. If you want to play an online game like Among Us with your friends, you have to be able to connect to your friends. Your friends are not on your computer. Your friends are somewhere else. So the whole idea of computer networks is basically interconnecting computers so that you can get access to the things you actually want, because the majority of them are not on your computer. That's just how it works. I hope that was clear. Was that clear? Or is anybody confused there? Any questions?
Clear.
All right, we're gonna pick up speed from here, so yeah, stay with me. All right, types of network. No, you don't necessarily have to know this as a basic person, in a basic, for a basic understanding of computing. But as you get into networking, these terms are common. You have to know these terms because everybody uses them. So a local area network, or a LAN. A local area network is a network of computers that basically exists in one place or building. Usually it's a building. It could actually be a bunch of buildings connected together, but if they're all in one physical location, that usually indicates that it's a local area network. There are a few other things that kind of make that up, but for the sake of making this simple, let's just leave it right there. So they're all in the same place, local area network. A wireless local area network, or WLAN, that is basically a local area network with wireless devices. So they're all in one place, they all network together, but that's it. Those are the only delimiters you have to worry about right now, and it's done wirelessly. A WAN, or a wide area network, is a number of, well, a set of local area networks that are linked together, right? So local area networks are in one physical location. If you have a wide area network, you have at least two local area networks that are in two different locations, usually far apart, that are connected together. And that's a WAN. All right. The internet is basically a very big WAN, a very big wide area network, because the network that you have in your house, and you may think, I don't have a network in my house, but if you have a wireless router from Cable and Wireless, and you are Flow, sorry, if you have a wireless router from Flow or Digicel, and you connect your phone to that on Wi-Fi, and you connect your laptop to that on Wi-Fi, and your TV is plugged in so you can watch Netflix or whatever, you have a network in your house. All right. And that is a local area network. And the Netflix and the Google and the Gmail and the all other stuff you access from the internet, you're accessing from a wide area network, because the internet is your local area network connecting to a whole bunch of other local area networks. That's basically what the internet is. It's not something that one person created or made up. It's just a connection or collection, sorry, a big collection of local area networks. Nobody created the internet. It just was that people kept adding their networks onto other people's networks, and eventually they all got connected together. Different providers is what we call them. Different providers said, okay, well, if all of your networks connect to me, or like Flow, for example, if all of your houses are connected to me, Flow, then I will connect you to the rest of the world. And then Flow has a line or a cable running to the rest of the world that they use to connect Barbados to the rest of the world. Same for Digicel. Digicel has a line or a cable, which actually really is connected to Flow, which then runs to the rest of the world, because Flow is the only one that owns the cables leaving Barbados. But long story short, your little local area network in your house connects to Flow, which provides a wide area network across Barbados and then to the rest of the world. And that is your connection to the internet. Internet is made up of networks just like that. Is everybody clear so far?
Yeah.
All right. I'm hoping you are, and I am not confusing anyone. No.
I just have a question about why there's a slash by internet and calling it the cloud.
Oh, right. Why do I have cloud on it? So you're gonna see the term cloud fairly often. And cloud basically refers to, this is my simplistic definition. Cloud basically refers to services that you access on the internet. So as much as people would like to tell you, you know, it has to be, it has to have this many servers and it has to whatever. You'll see all kinds of definitions, but for the purposes of this class, and generally for most purposes, the cloud basically is something you access from the internet, services you access from the internet. So Gmail is a cloud service. Google is a cloud service. Amazon is a cloud service. All of these are cloud services that you access from the internet. If you go and buy something from and ship it down to Barbados via Aeropost, and you are tracking how that is coming down to Barbados and where it has been and where it is going, that is a cloud service. So those are all cloud services that you access and you use. Okay, thank you, Judith, for flagging that. All right, let me get my head out of the way.
Question.
Okay, Nadia has a question.
So when you go to save something on your computer and it brings up OneDrive or OneDrive, something or the other, and that you're saving it on the cloud as opposed to on your computer. Explain how that works.
Okay, Nadia asked, when you, for example, go to save something on your computer and Microsoft obnoxiously brings up OneDrive and says, hey, put it here instead on the cloud as opposed to on your computer, how does that work? And how that works is Microsoft sells as a part of their Office stuff, their Office software, they will sell you a certain amount of storage. We talked about storage yesterday. They will, not last week, sorry. They will sell you a certain amount of storage on their servers at Microsoft. And they will by default, say, do you want to store your stuff here on the servers at Microsoft instead of, or in addition to storing it on your local computer? That's so that if your local computer goes down, then you have it somewhere, it's backed up. Or if you choose to use a different computer, it is available to you because you're accessing the same cloud service on a different computer once you log in.
Okay. That's kind of like Gmail.
Pardon me?
That's kind of like Gmail, and it gets to a point where, well, the free space that you have is exceeded by a certain time, I think.
Yep,
I
that's
think
right.
it works like that.
It is kind of like Gmail, and that's like so on a little side slant for companies that operate primarily in the cloud, like Microsoft and Amazon and Google, etc. That's a real easy way of making money. Selling storage, because storage is relatively cheap, and if they can sell you 100 gigs that cost them 50 cents and sell it to you at $20, they can make a lot of money on storage, right? Storage is easy and it's cheap to sell. You could sell storage from your computer if you had a really big hard drive. You could sell storage from your computer if you really wanted to.
But in addition to saying that I sell storage, I imagine I would have to be able to keep the people information fairly secure.
Well, that's a topic for another day. But if you, just on a side note, if you never tell them that you're keeping it secure, you don't have to keep it secure.
Oh, good grief. Fair enough.
That's if they buy storage from Judith's storage company and Judith never committed to securing anything, well, legally, you're not liable if it gets stolen.
Sounds a bit iffy. But okay.
Yeah, arguably, anyhow. Some people will argue differently. However, realistically, if you said I'm not upholding any of these laws, this is completely at your own risk. There it is.
Okay.
Good. Networking connections. No, there are really only two wired networking connections that you kind of have to worry about. There used to be others, but nobody really uses them anymore, or at least not much. There's Ethernet, which looks a lot like that yellow cable on the bottom left of the screen. Y'all have seen that before, right? And if you haven't seen that before, you've seen the one below it, which is a phone cable. Yep. Ethernet looks a lot like a phone cable. It's just a little thicker. And that's about it. It has a few more strands of wire in it, and there's some other differentiators. And the connector on the end is a little bigger. It's an RJ45 connector as opposed to RJ11, which is on the phone cables. All right. So Ethernet is a wired cable connection to a network. It uses copper wiring. All right. And it doesn't go very far. The maximum distance is about 100 meters, and it is about 10 gigabits per second for bandwidth or speed, that's the maximum. I mean, there's like theoretical tests that go up to like 100 gigs, but practically most Ethernet is not going to go past 10 gigs. It comes with different types of cables. There are Cat5 and Cat6. What you will have in your house is more likely than not going to be Cat5 or Cat6. Probably Cat5. The higher the category goes, the more bandwidth it can handle and the more expensive it is.
Okay,
right.
question.
Yes.
So if I feel like I got Cat5, which I feel that I have,
Right.
I could go and buy a Cat7 and put it in?
If you want to pay a lot of money, yeah, sure. You could
can
go
I-
buy a Cat7 and put it in. However, the cable isn't the only thing that determines how fast the data goes.
Oh, okay.
The
All
other
right.
thing is the devices that sit on either end of that cable. So if your computer, if the maximum speed of your computer for the wireless connection, like that looks like this, the RJ45 connection, if the maximum speed of that connection is 100 megabits or 1 gigabit, no matter what you plug into that, it will not go past that.
Gotcha.
So there you have to make sure that your computer can handle it and the other devices it connects to can handle it and the cable can handle it.
Okay.
Okay, good. So the higher up the categories, the more bandwidth it can handle. You probably will not see a Cat7 in your house in, well, I would say in your lifetime, but that may not be true. Who knows? It may change over time faster than it has been over the years. But for many years, we use Cat5. When I say many years, like 20, 25, 30, 40 years, we were using Cat5. So Cat6 is only kind of a recent thing, and Cat7 is even more recent. All right, now, fiber optics. You're not going to see these in your house, except where the cable from floor comes into your house. Now, fiber optics, they can carry a lot more data, and they can carry a lot more data, and they can carry it a lot further. So fiber optics goes up to like 100 kilometers for like your basic fiber optic stuff, your basic fiber optic cable. And people use fiber optic cables to link countries to one another. Barbados is linked to at least 2 other countries by fiber optic cables owned by Flow. Under the sea, yes. So they lay these big thick fiber optic cables that go under the sea, and those link the countries together. And that's how we get our internet most of the time. All right. If you remember a few years, well, not a few, last year, somebody accidentally cut one of the cables and everybody's internet went into a tailspin because—
I think it was the year before.
Pardon
And
me?
I think it was the year before, and I remember distinctly because that was the first day of exams and everybody was in the city. And I do not think that it was fixed properly from then till now, personally. That's my personal observation.
Serious. Yeah, so those undersea cables are those are fiber optics. Nadia was saying something, sorry.
No, I was saying, I think I missed that exam that day. That was wonderful because that was a bad exam that nobody was prepared for. And we got like an extra week to study for it. So
Yeah, it was awful. I found everybody in a tizzy, man. And you know everything was online, right?
Pardon me?
Everything was online because you know the COVID.
Sorry.
exactly.
So that's your fiber optic cables. Now, fiber optics are not copper. They use light. Copper cables use electricity. So Ethernet uses electricity to carry data. Fiber optics use light. So as a result, the fiber optics have to be made of things that can carry light. So gel on the inside and things like glass. So gel and glass. So imagine a cable that in the middle is made of gel and glass. As a result of that, you can't bend that at a right angle because it will break, right? And the light will not get through. So you can break a fiber optic cable. And as a result, when people are putting in fiber optic cables, they have to be very well certified for it because it can only go up to certain angles. You have to measure all the angles that the cable has to go through. Because if you bend it too much, it will break. All right. The pluses of fiber optics handle some huge distances. You can, again, between countries and all islands, fiber optics are used. Between buildings, if you want to go over 100 meters, which is Ethernet, if you want to go over the Ethernet distance of 100 meters, you will usually use a fiber optic cable. And it can handle huge amounts of bandwidth. Like the standard amount is around 100 gigabits. When I say standard, the highest, the maximum standard, I mean, it comes in grades, right? So the higher the grade, the more it can handle, much like Ethernet categories. However, the commercial standard is around 100 gigabits as a maximum, but it can go further than that. There are tests where, 300 terabits has been tested and more than that, and it works. And 300 terabits for reference is 300,000 gigabits. 1 terabit is 100,000 gigabits. Sorry, is 1,000 gigabits. So 300 terabits is 300,000 gigabits of data per second, right? So that is huge. All right, everybody following me so far? We talked about Ethernet and we talked about fiber. Fiber goes long distances and you can't bend it. Ethernet is made of copper, it goes shorter distances, and you can bend it in all kind of positions because it won't break. Fiber carries more data, Ethernet carries less data, but Ethernet obviously is cheaper than fiber. All right, everybody is following, I hope. Any questions? Any other questions? All right, moving right along. Networking connections. Again, I would be wrong if I didn't talk about wireless, right? Because we use wireless every day. Our phones use wireless, or laptops use wireless. Right now, I'm on a wireless connection on my laptop. Every day we use wireless, Bluetooth and all types of other stuff. Wireless connections use radio waves. All right, I need to say a few things about radio waves. Radio waves can pass through walls, they can pass through the air, they can pass through other things, but they do not like water and they do not like metal. All right. So if, for example, your wall has a lot of steel in it, radio waves aren't passing through that. Okay. Or if you work in a company which there's a lot of equipment around that is made of metal, radio waves will not pass through that. Lead is like the worst metal for radio waves. Not only, lead actually kind of absorbs it to a certain extent. So if you work in like a place with X-ray machines and that kind of thing, yeah, your wireless ain't gonna work properly in there. Not unless somebody designs it for that. No, the way wireless networking works, you have transmitters, or all networking really. You have transmitters and receivers, right? Transmitters send the data, receivers collect the data. The more power you give the transmitter, the further it can go. Makes sense, right? So why wouldn't you have, well, let me say this. There are laws to limit the amount of power a transmitter can have. Why would there be laws like that? Because if the transmitter is too powerful, it can cook you like a microwave.
Remind me where the transmitter is and where we'll have a transmitter.
Okay, so your phone has a transmitter and a receiver in it for Wi-Fi, for cell signals, and for Bluetooth. 3 separate transmitters and receivers. So it's not anything you really, pardon me?
My cell phone alone has those 3 transmitters.
Your cell phone alone has 3 transmitters and 3 receivers. So it has to be able to transmit data. So if you request your email, it has to send the request. And for you to get back your email, it has to receive the response.
Okay.
So the transmitter will send the request, the receiver will receive the response. And you must have a transmitter and a receiver for our two-way communication to take place.
Okay.
All right, good. The distance that a wireless signal can go is limited only by the transmitter and the receiver and the amount of power it has. Satellite signals are radio waves, and they come from all the way in space and reach your phone or other transmitters and other receivers, etc. Well, maybe not your phone, but well, some people's phones. But satellite signals can come all from all the way in space and reach, things on Earth based on the amount of power and the type of transmitter and receiver that is in place. Cell phone signals could cover a whole huge country based on the transmitters and receivers that are in place. But again, there is a limit to the amount of power that is used because the human body and other living organisms will die if they get exposed to too much of that radiation. Everybody following?
Yeah.
All right, cool. So just on a side note, the reason why, therefore, when the rain falls, if you go outside and the rain is falling, or you driving and the rain is falling, and your phone tends to go crazy, is because of the water. It doesn't like water. If you go into a building, too much metal, doesn't like metal. Doesn't work.
I'm tempted to ask you about satellite phones, but that may be outside of the scope of this.
So satellite phones, same concept. Same concept. Mostly satellite phones actually, because you really can't beam that amount of power down on Earth without like possibly killing somebody. Satellite phones people usually go outside to use them.
Right. I realize that it doesn't work inside very well anyway.
Yeah, and the reason is, you can't, it could work inside if you were to like just put the power and just blast it, right? But you would cook a bunch of people before you were finished. So yeah, that's why people need to go outside to use them.
Okay.
All right. So Wi-Fi or wireless that you use at home, Wi-Fi stands for wireless fidelity. Doesn't really have much of a meaning really outside of that, at least not practically. So Wi-Fi that you use in your home, your standard Wi-Fi, comes in two different wavelengths, right? 2.4 gigahertz and 5 gigahertz. Main things to remember about them, and most of the time, if like you look at a flow router and you look at the Wi-Fi that's available, it will have a Wi-Fi with a normal flow name, some big long gobbledygook name, if you haven't changed it, and then it will have the same gobbledygook name with 5G on it. Y'all have seen that. Some of us have seen that before, I imagine. Those 5G are the 5 gigahertz network. So it runs two networks at the same time, a 2.4 network and a 5 gigahertz network. What's the difference? The lower down you go in gigahertz, the easier it is to pass through walls and other obstacles.
Okay.
The higher up you go, the harder it is to pass through walls and other obstacles. But you will find that most people's devices will operate on 2.4 gigahertz. So 2.4 gigahertz gets crowded easily. And the more people that are on, is just like any other situation. If you have a bunch of people in the room talking to one another, it's going to be harder for you to hear your conversation. So wireless works like that. The more people that are connected to the channels that you are on, the radio channels that you are listening to, or the what's the word? Oh man, I said the word earlier and I can't remember what I said. But the more people that are connected to that bandwidth that you are using, 2.4 or 5, the harder it is going to be for you to hear your conversation. All right, so wireless devices usually have an upper limit of the number of persons or number of devices it can handle. The more are connected, the harder it is to understand your conversation. And they actually operate, the 2.4 gigahertz is actually a fairly wide band of channels, and you connect to a specific channel. The more people are connected, the more channels are in use, the harder it is to hear your conversation. That's what it really boils down to. So as a result, 2.4 gigahertz is popular because it can pass through a lot of stuff, but it is unpopular because more people are on it. So it actually can give a worse performance than 5 gigahertz. 5 gigahertz is unpopular because it doesn't pass through much, but it's very popular because once you're close enough to the router so it doesn't have to pass through a bunch of things, then it works very, very well because you're on it almost by yourself.
Okay.
All right. I hope that was clear.
Yes, except that I used to describe bandwidth like a cake. You have so much, and if you slice it smaller and smaller and smaller, then eventually it runs out.
But in this case, smaller slices are actually better.
Okay.
Because the smaller the slice, the fewer people can sit in it. If you want to imagine people sitting in the slice.
Okay.
But the smaller the slice, the fewer people can fit in it. So yeah. So small, actually 5 gigahertz slices up bandwidth into very small slices. So you might be on a channel by yourself, which is different to you having to share it with a bunch of other people.
Right. Okay. All
right. Hope that was clear. Moving right along. All right, a little more on Wi-Fi standards. The only reason I'm sharing this for one reason only, because when you guys go to buy your wireless devices and your wireless networking switches and so on, routers and so on and so forth, you're gonna see these written on it. So I'm sharing this just so you understand what it means. All right, there are a bunch of standards for Wi-Fi wireless. And I listed a few here. The older standards are older and they have slower speeds. This is the speed. 11 megabits per second is a speed. 54 megabits per second is a speed. Mind you, remember we talked about, just to give some context. Let me go back a bit. Remember we talked about fiber and Ethernet. Ethernet and fiber are measured in gigabits per second. A gigabit is 1,000 megabits. So they are faster than wireless by far, like by eons. They're also more reliable than wireless because if the rain falls too hard or somebody drive a big truck up next to your building, it could mess up stuff. I have seen wireless networks go down because a cordless phone went crazy. I mean, I don't mean a little wireless network. I mean a wireless network for an entire big company, like a big company. The whole floor went dead, right? And nobody for weeks, I mean weeks, I think it might even have been months, could figure out what was going on.
Because that was what I was about to ask you. How do you narrow it down to this?
So they called us in the company I was working for then, and I used to work a lot with wireless at that point. I was, it expired now, but I was a certified wireless network administrator. And I had something you could download to your phone, something called what is it called? Spectrum analyzer. That's what it's called. It's just a little application you can download to your phone. And all it does is turns your device into a receiver for wireless signals. And it monitors those signals and it tells you which one is higher and which one is lower and where it's coming from. So I turned on my spectrum analyzer and I saw like this spike that was like eating up like it was covered, like the wireless signals were down at the bottom in terms of strength. And then there was this huge spike that was like covering the whole thing. It was like, what is this? So, I mean, obviously you move through the building and the closer you get to it, the higher the spike will be. So I just went through the building and eventually I found where the spike was highest. It was a cordless phone that had stopped working, that nobody was even using anymore, but it was plugged in a photocopier room. And we plugged out the cordless phone and everything went back to normal.
Well, okay.
Yeah, so that was interesting stuff.
Sorry, one more question.
Yeah.
So this phone is like just the phone that you would have in your house or cordless?
Yeah,
phone?
normal cordless phone, a little.
Oh, really?
Yeah. The thing is, all of these things operate on radio waves, right?
Okay.
So when something malfunctions and just goes crazy and starts broadcasting like an idiot, it will broadcast on every radio wave available. Same thing with microwaves. If a microwave is malfunctioning, it could wreck the wireless in your home, not to mention cook you. So microwaves are nothing to trifle with. Okay, so Wi-Fi wireless networking standards. So 802.11b is older, 11 megabits.
Excuse me, Sean.
Yes, please.
You just said something about microwave and Wi-Fi.
Yeah.
I have a microwave, a Panasonic microwave, but when is microwave working and I'm looking at something on my phone or listening to something on my phone, the Wi-Fi in the house goes off. That is normal?
No, that's not normal. That's not supposed to happen. So one of two things could be happening. It's probably number two. Number one is that it could be that because microwaves draw a lot of power, it could be that the power is causing the host to brown out. But more likely is number two is that, you know, the glass shield on the front of the microwave when you close it, right?
Yeah.
Right. That shielding may not be secure or adequate. And as a result, the microwaves are getting out.
Okay.
So,
Or another thing, my router is in the kitchen. Could that be something too?
yeah, you
It's
should
too
move
close
that
in proximity?
Yeah, well, yes, you should move it from by the microwave, but I would suggest that you maybe get the microwave looked at, or even maybe, and I know people don't want to hear this, but replace it.
Get a microwave.
Yeah, because microwaves could cook you, they could give you cancer, they could do all kinds of rough stuff when they're not shielded properly.
Oh no.
Yeah,
All right, thank you.
yes, please.
How can it be shielded, Sean?
Pardon me?
How can it be shielded?
You buy one that is working very well. That's my best answer. I mean, you could put a big metal plate in front of it, but nobody wants to keep a metal plate in front of the microwave. So you buy one that's working well. It's just that over time, the shielding kind of wears down and the microwaves get out. That's just how it works. I've looked at microwaves in my spectrum analyzer before, and I've seen like depending on the age of the microwave, you could actually see the signals getting out, the radiation getting out.
Oh my, I'm in trouble.
To buy a microwave, Abiola.
Yeah. Would you recommend any specific brand, Sean?
No, I would not. I cannot say that I work with microwaves really all that much. But, yeah, this is just taken from my experience with wireless. So Tara, you had a question? Or Elijah, you had a question?
Oh, sorry.
Oh, okay, cool. All right, good. 802.11n is faster and it will go further. 802.11 AC is faster. AC is a little different in that it uses 5 gigahertz. So it's not going to get through walls all of that well, but for close range wireless, when I say close range, if you can see the wireless router, the signal will probably be quite good for AC. And AC goes up to 6 gigabits per second. All right. Cell phones have standards as well, and that dictates how fast their networks can operate. So 5G, 4G, etc. Satellite also has standards, and that dictates how fast they can operate. All right. But if you go to buy a wireless router, I guess you would know that 11G is worse than 11N, and 11AC is probably the best you can find right now.
Okay.
But it won't go through walls, at least not very well. Okay, good. Moving right along. Network addressing. So you have all of these devices on your local area network. That's the one at home. You have your phone and your laptop and your every other kind of thing. How does your phone know where to go to get information? How does your laptop know where to go to get information? How does anything on your network know where to go to find anything else? Just like how we operate in the real world with addresses, see the letter there with an address on it, every device on a network has at least one address, probably 3 or 4, right? And each device, like your phone doesn't only have one address on it. Your phone kind of operates a little like an apartment building with a whole bunch of tenants in it. Each application that's running on your phone is a tenant. So your Microsoft, whatever, Outlook is a tenant. Your Gmail application on your phone is a tenant. WhatsApp is a tenant. Any other video game that you have on your phone is a tenant, right? And what they will do when they send out their address, they have to send the address of the phone plus the address of the tenant. Y'all following me so far? Or else
Yeah.
when the response comes back to that tenant, it will come back to the phone if you get the address of the phone, but then it won't know who to send it to inside the phone. So you need to have the address of the phone plus the address of the tenant. Everybody following me?
I think so.
Okay, good. So in network addressing, the messages that are sent, the letters that are sent back and forth between devices, those are called packets. Or you could, I mean, I guess that comes from the word package, but they're called packets. I am not going to go into detail as to how packets are put together because that is for a much deeper discussion. But suffice it to say, you know, the message is wrapped in some information that's wrapped in more information that's wrapped in more information, and you know, it gets sent that way. Each message or packet will have to have a return address on it so that it will, you know, the receiver will know how to get back to the sender. Everybody following me so far?
Yeah.
This is the most complex part of what I have to say today. So if you're not following, just ask a question. All right, I'm assuming everybody's good. Each packet, sorry, I heard a voice.
I said, yeah, I'm good.
Okay, cool. So each packet will have a return address, and it will also have the address of the person it's going to, because or else you won't know how to get it there. All right. So those packets, my phone sends out a packet, or my computer right now, even as I'm speaking, every word I say or every bit of sound I make comes out as a packet from my computer. It has the sender's address of my computer and the return address to come back to my computer so that you will know how to get back a response. And it has a sender's address to send it to Zoom, who will then send it to all of you all. All right, so that's how this is working right now. You are receiving packets all right now. If you can hear me, you're getting packets. If you can see my screen, you're getting packets. All right, so far so good. Now, computers, these addresses, these addresses are written in numbers, right? And at its most basic level, those numbers are in binary. Binary has two numbers, 0 and 1. Now, this is really easy for computers to understand because basically it works like on and off. If you ever look at a device, you realize that sometimes the off button, if the off position will have a 0 and the on position will have a dash or a 1. Y'all know what I'm talking about? Y'all have seen that before when you look at a switch?
Yeah.
Right. Off position will have a 0 and the on position will have a 1. That's because computers basically at their most basic level only understand off and on. So when you're talking to a computer, it's basically off, on, off, off, on, off, on, off, off, on, off, 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 on, off, off, like that. So computers prefer to work with numbers because they at its most basic level, they just understand off and on. So the addresses are in numbers. Human beings cannot read the average, let me say the average human being, because some crazy humans can read binary. But human beings on average usually cannot read binary, right? So that word, that big long string of 0 1s and 0 1 1 zeros, etc., that's hello in binary. Human beings cannot read binary. Okay, and neither do we want to. So what we do instead is we say, all right, look, let's come up with some names that we can read, and then let's link them back to the numbers that the computer reads. All right, like a telephone directory. So you will have a name with an address, and then you will have a number that is associated with. There is a directory service. It's called domain name service that the whole internet uses. All right, with directories all over the world. There's a directory service called domain name service with directories all over the world. When you create something that you want to share with others on the internet or on any network, you have to register with the domain name service and say, this is my name. From now on, anytime you see my name associated with this number, just like when, somebody, I come to you, or we're talking at church and you want to be able to find me later. So I give you my phone number and you put it into your phone and you have to put my name, because if you just put the number in your phone, you're not gonna know who it is. So you put my name and then you put my number next to it. Domain name addressing system works basically the same way. You have the name and you have the number. The names look like this: Google, www.google.com, or www.amazon.com, or CNN.com, or MSN.com, or Microsoft.com, or whatever have you. The names look a lot like that. I could explain how the names are actually put together, but that is outside of the range of this course. I don't want to go too deep and then lose people. So that's outside the range of this course. But the names are put together in a special way so you could trace back exactly where people are based on the name. However, understand that each name is associated with a number. It's easy for humans to read the names, so we could type these things into our computers or our search engines, and it will find this thing for us. However, there's going to be a number associated with this name. I want to show you guys something.
So Sean,
Yes, please.
would it be like a part of writing a program for the computer we were on?
This
Or
isn't
that's
really
a
writing
different thing?
this isn't really writing
mean,
programs. Not really. This is using somebody else's program. So when you type google.com in your browser, in Chrome or whatever you use, when you type google.com in Chrome, what will happen is your computer will go over to the directory on the internet. It will go to one of the directories, probably the directory closest to it. Cable and Wire Flow has a directory that they keep locally, right? It will go to the directory closest to it, which may be Flow or Digicel directory, and it will ask it, I want to find google.com. What's the number address for that? And the directory that Flow has will say, okay, yeah, I have google.com. The number address is this. If you want to find it, go to this address, this number. And that's how it will work. That is a fairly simplified explanation, but essentially that's how it works. All right, so I will take it one level further. I hope I don't lose anybody here. I really hope I don't. When you send in that name and you ask for an address, you won't get back like the 11011110111. You get back a slightly more easy to understand number that looks like this. This is called an IP address or a TCP IP address. Everybody following me so far? I'm gonna take this real slow. This is called a TCP IP address. If you look at this address, you realize that is kind of put together in a certain way. Can anybody kind of see how it's put together? Like, how many numbers is actually in this address? There are 4 numbers in each address with a full stop in between each number. Everybody can see that?
Okay.
Everybody can see that?
Yeah,
Yeah? Okay, good. Each of those 4 numbers basically is a part of the address.
okay.
Yeah? Okay, so each of those 4 numbers is a part of the address. If you get into networking as a job, right, then these addresses, not the 00111100 thing, but these addresses will become a very common part of your life. And you will have to understand, you will have to be able to look at an address and read where it is going and you know, kind of figure out what it's associated with. So I can look at these addresses right now. For example, from experience and from, you know, working in this stuff, the first one, that is an address that is in somebody's house. That's a local area network address. So is the second one. The third one is the domain name server for Flow, one of them. They have 2. And then the bottom one is the domain name server for Google.
Okay.
So if you're working in networking, you're gonna know these things like the back of your hand. You will. So, and remember I told you this course is to help you figure out whether or not you want to do this. Yeah. if you're gonna get into this, these types of things are something and you don't have to, it doesn't call for any maths. There's no maths to it. It's just logic, really. So, but, and I could explain how it's put together, but I'm not going to do that today or ever on a class like this. But it's really cool and it's really good and it's easy to learn once you can get the logic behind it. So if you want to get into this kind of thing, this is networking at its most basic form is going to be a lot about TCP/IP. All right,
So I think Shannon had a question that
yeah, let me look here now.
It didn't seem to relate to IP addresses, but what I was gonna say is that when I got my internet installed, and as you said, you know, they give you this name, your LAN gets a name. I don't like the name that they give me. So I like a name that I can recognize. And I usually have to put in an IP address to get to wherever to change the password to what I want it to be.
Yes.
And,
yes.
It's usually it looks a bit simpler than these IP addresses.
So most of you, if you have a Flow router, if you go to your browser and you type in 192.168.1.1, it's going to bring up your router and allow you to actually make changes to it.
Right.
Which is, yeah, that's what you're talking about there, Judith.
Right.
And that's the address of your router. Because your router does not have a name on DNS, then the only way to find it is by using an address, a number address. So because you don't have the name of your router, you gotta call it by number.
Okay.
Uncle Sean, can you repeat the number, please?
192.168.1.1.
192.168.
Like see how I have 192.168 here? 192.168.1.1.
Okay.
And that will probably give you your local Flow router.
Thank you.
We actually in some courses actually started on hack people. Anyhow, we're gonna leave that alone. Right. Shannon, okay. The question is, explain at some point why ads pop up regularly while online. Mic not working. So, the way when you go onto the internet and you use Google, for example, Google is a service that you are using, all right? And you're searching and you're doing all kinds of stuff. In this world, nothing is free. Let's start with that number one assumption. Even salvation costs Jesus something, even though it's free to you. So nothing is free, all right? So the way people like Google and all of these other places make money is by selling advertisement slots. All right, and the more slots they sell, the more money they make. So those pop-up ads are advertisement slots that they have sold to somebody. And the body they have sold it to is what comes up in the ad, essentially. So it's their way of making money. You're not paying them for the service you're not paying them for the service of searching information. You're getting that service for quote unquote free. So they have to get paid somehow. So they get paid by selling those ads.
They're annoying to us, but I guess somebody's paying Google to make them pop up.
Somebody has to pay somebody. So there you go. Okay. We're at 10:56. I'm gonna go through the last 2 slides and then we're gonna do our test quickly.
Okay.
Okay, network devices. Now, there are a few types of devices that you're going to encounter, especially in your home. You're going to encounter a switch. A switch has cables, basically is a connector for cables. Your Ethernet cables that we talked about with the RJ45 slots earlier up. Let me go back. Your Ethernet cables that look like this with the RJ45 slots. Anything that has more than one of those slots is essentially a switch, or more likely than not a switch. All right. And yes, your flow router is a switch. It has a switch in it because you're going to see like 4 or 5 of those slots. I think they turn off a few of them, but the slots are still there. So a switch connects multiple wired devices. All right. And when I say wired, a switch may have ports for copper cabling or Ethernet cabling, or it may have ports for fiber cabling, or it may have ports for both. Obviously, the more expensive, the more types of ports it has, the more expensive it is. And the more ports it has, the more expensive it is. So a 24-port switch is going to be more expensive than an 8-port switch.
Okay.
All right, good. And a 8-port switch with fiber slots is probably going to be more expensive than a 24-port switch without fiber slots because fiber is expensive.
Gotcha.
Okay, good. That's a switch. It just connects devices together. Very simple. But they're always wired. Switches do not do wireless. All right. Switches only operate for wired cabling. There's no wireless cabling. So yes. Routers. Routers essentially at their most basic allow you to move from one type of network to another. So you have a wireless router in your house that has wired a wired switch in it, and then it has a wired like antennas with a wireless function. You can move from the wired to the wireless and back from wireless to wired on that router device. That is a router. All right. When you move from one type of network to the other, you're using a router. When you move from your home LAN, your local area network at home to the internet, you have to use a router. A router allows you to move from one network to the other. If you move from one set of IP addresses, so in your house, you probably have everything. If you look at the, how would you find that on your normal computer? Okay. I should really do a little. All right, we'll do that next time. Remind me next time. I'm gonna show you guys a few little tricks regarding IP addresses and understanding that. But most of the addresses in your house are going to be, 192.168.something.something. If you want to change to another set of numbers, like 10 or 200 or whatever, you're gonna need a router. If you're moving out of the addresses that you have into a different set of addresses, you need a router. So anytime you move from one type of network to another, or one group of network addresses to another, you need a router. You have a wireless router in your home probably, and it connects the wired devices to the wireless devices. And it also connects you to Flow or Digicel, whomever. I have a question. Yes.
I have a real stupid question now.
There's no stupid questions? Only
You
stupid
said
people.
stupid
No,
ones.
just kidding. Just kidding. Just kidding.
Right. So when we talk about a landline is a local area network, that's what it is, and not LAND on the
Right,
site.
yes. Good question, actually. She asked, when you talk about a landline or a landline, is it a local area network line or is it something else? A landline is a LAND line. And yeah, is a landline, and a landline is linked specifically to the land that you're on, the country that you're in. It runs to your house via a cable, and it's usually copper cables. Recently, Flow started putting in fiber, so now there are also fiber cables, but usually copper cables running on the telephone poles, and it runs to your house on the land. That is a landline. The whole country of Barbados, and yeah, the whole country of Barbados, and land, really, because if it's not a landline, it's really a wireless signal. Right? So there we go. Right, last thing on the list, a wireless repeater. A wireless repeater says, all right, I'm going to take this wireless signal, because wireless signals lose, as they pass through air, they lose strength, right? So the further the signal goes, the less powerful the signal is, which is why when you go far away from your wireless router, you might only get 2 bars as opposed to 4, right? And the more things it has to pass through, the less powerful it will be, which is why when you go and stand up behind 3 walls, even though you are close to your wireless router, you may only get 2 bars as opposed to 4. Okay. Right. Now, wireless repeaters take that signal and then power it up again, like basically amplify the signal and send it back out so that you can get 4 bars again. All right. And that allows you to extend the distance that a signal can go. For wireless devices, you use a repeater. Wired devices, switches and routers actually amplify the signal. So, if you have a copper cable that has a limit, Ethernet has a limit of 100 meters. If you want to go beyond 100 meters, you just connect to a switch and then come out with another copper cable and continue going. The switch will read the signal coming over the copper cable and do the same thing as a repeater. Amplify the signal and send it back out. All right. But so the switch handles repeaters, the switch handles repeating sort of for wired devices, whereas a wireless repeater will handle repeating for wireless devices. Yes, that's a question.
I was asking, so if you have like a big property like a hotel, then you will have to have a lot of repeaters on the property.
Right. If you have a big property like a hotel, would you have a lot of repeaters on the property? Not necessarily. So what you will probably do, right? Remember I told you fiber runs long. It goes long distances. Copper goes shorter distances, and wireless, doesn't go through walls very well. So you kind of use the properties of all 3 of those. Between buildings, you will have fiber. Between floors, you will have fiber. Like most of the major installations that I've done, they come out like this. Between buildings, between floors, etc., you will have fiber. Then those fiber will run into switches, and on the given floor, you will have copper running all over the floor, in the roof, in conduits in the wall, all over the place. And then those copper cables will end with a wireless device. So you have a small wireless device in small areas to cover that one little area. Repeaters are, I guess, okay, but it's not advised because, well, it's not advised. You could do it, but the problem is with repeaters that you don't always get a very clean signal. Sometimes it will repeat nonsense. And that is why if you've bought like a mesh network, you see these things selling mesh networks, and they have like a bunch of things that you plug all over your house, and it provides wireless for the whole house. That is actually one main wireless router and then a bunch of repeaters. That's how the mesh network works. And the repeaters repeat to one another. So it tries to cover the whole house with a signal. But if one repeater is too far away or a couple are too far away, you will realize that when you go into that area, you might get spotty transmission or slow. Even though you're getting 4 bars, the internet will be slow because it's repeating nonsense in a lot of times, a lot of cases.
Okay, so I think I have what you are calling a repeater.
Yes.
And the reason I have it is, and I have a small property, Nadia. I have it because we have cameras and I think it needed the Ethernet.
Right.
I'm not sure that it is helpful with respect to throwing the internet further throughout the house, to be very honest, because I think we actually get better reception outside on our cell phones, for example.
Okay.
Yeah. I had, and I think what had happened too is I had one before this one, and the cameras, we were just not connecting to the cameras at all.
Right. Yeah.
Come to find out that the repeater itself was hampering, well, specifically the cameras, because it's really the cameras that are plugged into it.
Right.
But it was a little frustrating because I guess when I buy things that work forever, and I didn't think that it went bad. But when I finally realized it was the repeater that went bad, I changed it out. So I guess it has a lifespan.
But it has a lifespan, and the funny thing about repeaters is that I don't like repeaters. You can hear it in my voice.
So what could be my option? Can I use something other than a repeater for the cameras?
Yeah. So what I would do, especially if the property is a small one,
yeah.
You might need to get somebody with some skills to do this. Not necessarily technical skills, just running cable skills. I'd run some cables to all of my cameras and run them back to a switch.
Yeah, that's how it's set up. That's how I have it set up, because we did it ourselves.
Okay. So if your cables run to the cameras, then how does the repeater get into it?
Because it seems as though it seems to need internet, and it seems as though that's how it works. Like it don't work.
Oh, I
something
understand.
I don't understand.
I understand. Yeah, you're gonna need to run a cable from your switch back to your wireless router.
To avoid the repeater?
Yeah, take out the repeater all the thing altogether.
Oh, and run, you said run a cable from
your switch back to the wireless router. You may need to do a little work with the IP addressing to make sure that the cameras are happy with the wired network. And everything goes fine there. Okay. But outside of that, you should be fine. That's the way I would do it. I don't like I personally don't like using repeaters. I think that's a bad idea personally. Okay.
Gotcha.
Good. We are way past our time. My last slide talks about some of the more popular certifications. I have to end with the certifications. If you're looking to get into networking, Cisco is the world's most popular networking vendor. Hands down, no holes barred. You will hear of others like Huawei and Linksys and a few others. Huawei is a little strange in that US government, I think, ban all Huawei devices.
They did, yeah.
Because they're afraid that the Chinese government is using them to steal information. I don't know if they are or not, but
yeah, that was a big thing.
So Cisco, nobody, as we say in IT, you don't get fired for buying Cisco. Cisco is one of the most popular. It's fairly expensive, but it's very popular. And as a result, their courses are the ones you kind of want to go for. They talk about their devices, yes, but then they have to, in order to get into the part with their devices, they have to go through a whole lot on general information. And their general information is usually very good. I was a Cisco certified network professional. I was a Cisco certified network professional at some point in time, but that was a little while ago. That expired as well. And And the exams are hard, but they're fair. And if you know your stuff, you will pass. The lowest level you can get into is something called Cisco Certified Technician. It's a 90-minute exam, $120 US, 25 US, sorry. And the training for most of their basic stuff is free. So they actually have something called Cisco Networking Academy with a whole bunch of free courses that you can log in and take at your will, understand and learn a lot more about networking. The other vendor neutral option, when I say vendor neutral, they don't sell networking devices. So they don't teach you about anybody's specific device. They just teach you about general networking, is CompTIA. And they have a certification called Network Plus. It's more expensive. CompTIA exams are usually pretty expensive. 90 minutes, 358 US. These things are one shot only, yeah? So you either pass or you fail. In terms of free certifications, there's not much around for networking, unfortunately. So if you had to get started, these are kind of the two I would point you in the direction of. And on that note, I am going to switch to our test for today. 10 questions, and we're going to get them done in about let's say 7 minutes today, because 10 minutes is too long. 10 questions, 7 minutes. All right, and here comes your quiz. And launch. You have 7 minutes until 11:19. All right, we got one more minute. And we'll be done in 1 moment. All right, and our time is almost up. Time actually really goes. Okay, there we go. Time is up, and I'm gonna end the quiz. I'm going to.
Sean.
Yes,
I wanted a little more time.
look there. When you do these certification exams, if you do them, nobody has any mercy on you. The thing just ends when it ends, and that's it. Okay, I'm going to display I'm going to share the results. I'm going to show the correct answers, and y'all should be able to see your correct answers. Computer network is a way of connecting multiple computer devices. Yeah, for sure is true. The internet is a big computer network. Yep, definitely true. Which is not true about fiber optic cables. They are made of copper. They are used to link islands. They carry data using light from a laser, usually. They are actually made, they are not made of copper. So that's the correct answer, which is not true of Wi-Fi signals. They gain power while passing through solids. They do not gain power, they lose power when passing through solids. So that is not true. Which is the fastest Wi-Fi standard in use for household equipment today? 802.11ac. 11b is the slowest. It's the most common, but it's the slowest. 11ac is the fastest. Every device on a computer network has at least one address. That is true. It must have at least one address, or else you will not be able to find it. DNS, or domain name system, is used to link addresses that humans can read to number addresses that computers can read. That is true. 192.168.20.5 is an example of what? Is an example of a binary number, a TCP IP address, 802.11c, or a switch. It's an IP address, TCP IP address. Number 9, which of these links computers in a network using cables only? And that is a switch. A router can use wireless or wired, but a switch will only use cables. And then CompTIA produces which vendor-neutral networking certification? Network Plus is the certification. All right, that is it for today's class. As usual, I will send out the recording and the slides by maybe Tuesday or so. If you have any questions, send them to my email, bajantrainer@gmail.com, and I'd be glad to answer. Have a great day, everyone. God bless.
All right.